Hello and welcome. I am so pleased to be joined today by Jenn Gruber. Jenn is a life coach who specializes in family transitions. The topic that we are going to be talking about today is tackling the tough topics, 10 tips for more productive and effective conversations. Jenn, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Debbie. It's great to be here.
And you're going to be sharing some tips with us for having effective communication and good tough conversations. I know as our parents age or we age, it is there are a lot of topics that come up in situations where we might think we're being helpful, and I think you're going to be helping us through some of those situations where we're thinking we're helpful might not be so helpful, and give us better ways to do it.
Yeah, exactly. There are topics that come up when our parents are aging that just aren't always fun to talk about. There's some things that are just like sad and
Mhm.
upsetting, and it's upsetting for us and upsetting for our parents. And sometimes, nobody wants to have those tough conversations, but there are ways to approaching them that makes it a little bit easier, and that kind of helps increase the likelihood that the person we're talking to will be more receptive.
Oh, fantastic. So we're going to be learning 10 tips. I will let you take this away. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie. So, we all from time to time find ourselves in situations where we need to have a tough conversation with someone. And these tips are really things that can apply to any conversation. For purposes of this presentation, I'm going to focus on conversations we may have with a parent, but the same guidelines apply whether you're talking to one of your kids or a sibling or a partner, spouse, anyone. So you can just keep that in mind. So, nobody looks forward to having tough conversations, or what we anticipate is going to be a tough conversation. So the most important thing to remember going into it is everyone wants to feel seen and heard and understood. So that's the lens we kind of need to approach it through. The more we're listening to what the other person has to say, and the more we go in with an open mind, the more productive the conversation can be. And that'll lead to a more productive and positive exchange, hopefully. So let's see. The first tip I'm going to give is before you start the conversation, it's really helpful to have a clear goal in your own mind of what you hope to achieve in the conversation. Whether you are just sharing concerns, whether you're kind of feeling out where the other person is, whether you're planting a seed. Sometimes there is a decision or a plan that needs to be made, but it doesn't always need to happen within that conversation. So just knowing from the start what your goal is in the conversation will help to kind of keep you on track. And when you do get kind of sidetracked, it helps you to kind of bring the conversation back to be really clear with yourself on what the goal is and what you're hoping to accomplish in that conversation. The next thing that I would recommend is choosing a time and a place that are conducive to having a productive conversation. So when people are already, agitated or upset or stressed out, they're more likely to be defensive and maybe less receptive to new ideas. So a lot of times people think that having in-person conversations is ideal, and it often is. It's always easier to talk in person, especially when you are talking about something difficult. But a lot of times with those in-person, we're not seeing people that frequently. And when we do see them, if it's like maybe a holiday gathering or a wedding or a funeral, we may think, okay, this is perfect. We're going to be together in person. Great time to have this conversation. And that's not always totally true. If you're together for a funeral, emotions can already be high. You're already feeling maybe upset or sad. And so adding a tough conversation to those already difficult emotions is going to be tough. weddings, people are happy and usually upbeat and in a good mood, but sometimes there's stress that goes along with weddings. Sometimes people just want to be really present for the bride and groom and don't want to be distracted by talking about something that might be uncomfortable. Holiday gatherings, Thanksgiving is a big time that people often try to kind of sit down and have that family powwow. And um, a lot of times that it just ends up kind of backfiring because, first of all, for the person who's hosting the gathering, they're, trying to keep everyone entertained, trying to get everyone fed, and it can be stressful. And families experience stress around the holidays for a multitude of different reasons. So just keeping in mind whether this is really the best time and place to have the conversation can be really helpful. Next thing is to approach the conversation with curiosity. So you're viewing this as an opportunity to kind of understand your parent and what he or she might be feeling or experiencing, and to provide some reassurance rather than just as a time to share your own agenda, I guess. So for example, let's say your mom has been making these cookies from scratch for your whole life, and she loves, baking these cookies. She insists on baking these cookies from scratch, and it's a ton of work, and it's taking her hours to do it, and she's on her feet and her back is sore, and it just becomes a more and more laborious task, and you realize that it's just not that easy for her anymore. So you could approach the conversation by saying, you know what, Mom, these cookies are just too much work for you. You don't need to do it anymore. You can buy cookies. Everyone will be fine with store-bought cookies. You don't need to bake them from scratch. Or you can buy a mix, make cookies from a mix. Or you can buy nuts that are pre-chopped. Save yourself some work, whatever suggestions you might have. So that would be one way you could approach it. And in that scenario, your mom might say, no, this is the way I've always done it. I have to make these cookies and don't tell me what to do, basically. So if instead you approach the conversation differently by saying, it looks like I know those cookies are a lot of work. And just kind of leave it at that and see what that might lead to. At that point, that kind of gives her an opening to say, yeah, it really is a lot of work, but I feel like I have to do it because everyone expects me to. Or, everyone always compliments me on my cookies. That's what I'm known for. So I feel like I need to do it. Or, it's my mom's recipe, and this is the way I used to bake with my mom, and doing this reminds me of her. There's lots of different reasons that making the cookies from scratch could be important to her. So introducing the topic in a way that gives her an opportunity to share what those reasons might be leads the conversation in a totally different direction than if you're just saying, like, Mom, this is too much work, stop baking the cookies. So the next thing, I think we're on number 4 now, and this goes kind of hand in hand with being curious, is asking why. So let's say your mom has a punch bowl, like a big, not very attractive punch bowl that she's had for 50 years, and she's never used it. And no one in the family wants it. You don't anticipate it ever being used, but she refuses to get rid of it. So you could approach that by saying, okay, look, Mom, you've got too much stuff. You need to downsize. We need to get rid of things. The punch bowl has to go. We don't have room for it anymore. It's not practical. You've never used it. You're never going to use it. It's ugly. The punch bowl is going. And in that situation, in that scenario, your mom might respond not very receptively to that. I'd be like, no, it's my punch bowl. I don't want to get rid of it, and kind of dig her heels in. Whereas if you ask instead, Mom, I know you don't want to get rid of this punch bowl. Like, why is the punch bowl important to you? What's making you want to keep it? And that could give her an opportunity to say, well, it's still a good punch bowl. It still works. It would be wasteful to get rid of it. Or, it was a gift and you don't give away things that someone gives to you. Or, my best friend when I was 22 gave it for me as a wedding gift and it reminds me of her. Or, I don't know, I have had this dream of having a party and having the punch bowl as this centerpiece, and I still want to do that one day. There's all kinds of reasons that she might be attached to the punch bowl, and you may still end up convincing her to get rid of it, but knowing what her reasons are really helps you approach it to come up with a solution that kind of honors those reasons and honors her. The next thing that I would recommend is to let go of assumptions. So a lot of us hear our parents saying things for years and years and years. Our mom might say, I will never stop hosting Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is my holiday. I'm always going to host. I'll never go to anyone else's house for Thanksgiving. So if you reach a point where you feel like hosting Thanksgiving has gotten to be too much for her and someone wants to help or someone else wants to host, you could approach that by saying, okay, Mom, look, I know you're not going to like this. I know you want to host Thanksgiving, but you just can't do it anymore. It's just not working. It's too much for you. In that scenario, your mom might feel like, okay, someone else is trying to make my decisions for me. They don't appreciate me doing Thanksgiving. They would want to take that away from me. Whereas, if you bring up the conversation, Thanksgiving's coming up, my friend Debbie's mom decided to come to her house instead this year instead of hosting it herself. And that was like it worked out really well. She loved it. And it's a great new tradition. That kind of opens the door, excuse me, for your mom to say, well, it is a lot of work. And she could still say, well, it is a lot of work, but I really want to do it here. But it softens it a little bit. It opens the conversation in a way that's giving her space to tell you how she feels about it and to feel like you care how she feels. The next thing I would suggest is letting your parent know that you've heard them and that you're listening to them by repeating back things that they've said. So for example, with the cookie example, you could say to your mom, oh, you know what? It's really nice. I didn't realize that you used to bake these cookies with your mom, and it must be really nice to kind of have that memory of her and to do something that brings back memories of her. Like, what else do you do that makes you feel close to your mom? And that might help her to realize that it doesn't have to be baking the cookies, or that she can buy the nuts pre-chopped and she'll still be able to have a part of that feeling that she has, the closeness that she has to her mom. Or in the punch bowl scenario, if the example was, it would feel wasteful to get rid of the punch bowl, then you could say, you know what, Mom, that totally makes sense, because if there's one thing that you have never been wasteful. I've never known you to be wasteful. So of course you don't want to do something that makes you feel wasteful. Using those words that they've used and really letting them know that you're hearing what they're saying. The next thing is pay attention to any hints or clues that they give, like anything that your parent might say to start a conversation. If your mom says something like, I'm not as young as I used to be, I think a lot of times our natural instinct is to want to say, like, what? No, Mom, you're healthy. You're in great shape. You can do this. Which kind of shuts down the conversation. And whereas if you were to say, Well, that's true. Like none of us are as young as we used to be. Like what changes are you noticing? You know, what do you mean by that? How do you feel different now? That really can be a great way of opening up a conversation and giving your parent an opportunity to express things that may not have occurred to you. They may be your mom, like for example, could be not going to her monthly bridge games anymore. And you it could say, you know, mom, like you love playing bridge and you know, you love being with your friends and you know, come on, you need to get back at that. And if she's like, I'm not really that good at it anymore. And if you were to say, like, of course you are, you're great at bridge. Um, that isn't really doesn't communicate to her that you're listening to what she's saying. Now, if you say, like, what do you mean? She might say, you know what? It's just really embarrassing because I have trouble remembering people's names now. And I don't like to go because I don't want anyone to feel bad. I don't want people to feel like I don't remember them or don't know who they are. And I don't want to be embarrassed. And then you're having a whole different conversation. It just asking things, really open-ended questions that give your parent an opportunity to share with you can be really helpful. The next thing, number 9, if you, oh, sorry, no, yeah, number 8, as you talk, notice any reactions that you're having. If you're feeling especially, you know, triggered, annoyed, frustrated, whatever, take a deep breath and just tell yourself, like, okay, it's normal that I'm feeling this way. Like this is frustrating, or this is sad, or, you know, of course this is a tough conversation. Just give yourself space to feel however you're feeling. And then if you sense that the conversation is really going downhill and, you know, tensions are escalating either for you or the other person, then ask yourself whether the conversation can be continued at another time. It might be, might make more sense to just kind of table the discussion for now and revisit it at another time. And sometimes these conversations do take multiple times. The first time could be kind of planting a seed, and then the follow-up conversation could be a little more productive. You're not always gonna reach a resolution all in one 15 or 20-minute conversation. And then my final tip is to end the conversation by reminding the other person that you're talking with them because you love them and care about them, and you really do, you really are interested in hearing what they have to say, and you want to come up with a solution that that they're happy with, or where they're safe, and where they are really feeling good. That's what you want most of all, and that you care about them and love them, and that's why you're talking with them. And I would always recommend ending on that note. So that's in a nutshell what I have to offer. Oh, you're muted.
Of course I am. There's so much wisdom in such that you've just condensed. I have so many thoughts going through my mind, but just that showing another all go away. But these tips for conversations, like even before you get to the hard conversations, these are all things we should probably be doing in every conversation that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so often when we're talking to people, we're thinking about, like, when they're talking, we're thinking about what we're going to say next. We're thinking about what our response is. And if that's what we're thinking, then we're not really listening. And I think just really giving that attention and being present and hearing what the other person has to say is so valuable.
It really is. I'm thinking about the punch bowl story and the cookie example. There's such great opportunities to get to know your parents in ways that you may never have thought to, and to learn stories and to take that time and just get to know all different aspects of them.
Definitely. And I think no matter what age someone is or what stage of their life. You know, my mom is 86. She's been sharing stories with me recently that I've never heard before. My dad had Alzheimer's, and when he was, you know, in pretty advanced stages of his disease, he would share things with me about his childhood that I had never heard before. So I think that there are some really kind of precious opportunities as our parents grow older and kind of approach the end of their lives to create really new and special bonds with them.
Absolutely. You learn to help you understand them. They get to know you better.
Yeah,
And you're creating new memories with them that you'll be able to treasure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Absolutely. And another kind of bonus is if you have kids, you know, if we have our own kids, it really sets a nice example for them of how we want to be treated in our later years. And you know, that we you know, would expect and hope to have the same respect and attentiveness that we're giving our parents.
Yeah, because these conversations are absolutely difficult. I mean, when you talk about maybe it's time to stop driving or being home alone, those are really difficult conversations. And not my first comments. I'm not trying to sugarcoat that things are just going to be just right. But I'm thinking if we use these suggestions and advice a long time before we get to that point, then you're having better conversations, better relationships. So when it does come time to have more difficult conversations, you might be farther ahead,
Yeah,
able
because
to
you've
have
already
them.
established that kind of respect and trust. Sure. Yeah.
So when I
And
talk
you're
to my
right.
kids
The
this afternoon,
conversations.
I'll be trying to have the listening more.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Some of those conversations are just never going to be easy. The
Mm-mm.
driving one is usually a tough one. I think, you know, with that one, if you go into it by saying like, okay, mom, you're not going to like this, but you've got to hear it, that is going to just immediately kind of set the stage for defensiveness and conflict. Whereas, you know, there are other ways of approaching it that could lead to, you know, a little bit more, um, just a little, uh, maybe not, yeah, a little bit easier conversation.
I want to ask you about I know another area well, that we struggled with was trying to downsize some or what to do with some of the stuff that's
Yeah.
accumulated. And those conversations can be difficult too. Do you? And I can see how some of these techniques that you've shared definitely translate to that. But that situation in particular, do you have any advice or suggestions
Yeah.
for what can make it a little easier?
So I think the thing that makes it hardest for people to let go of possessions is they feel like a lot of their identity is tied up in those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, they either they hold a lot of memories and they feel like um, a lot of times people want someone in their family to take their things, and if no one wants those things, they feel like not just that the things aren't valued, but that they're not valued. You know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not valued, my history isn't valued, the family ties aren't important to anyone. So I think as much as you can reassure someone that, like, of course we care about the history and the stories, and that's what we want to preserve, but we don't need, we don't need this clock in order to remember you or to remember your father or whatever. Um, so, so I think I would say really just giving a lot of reassurance around the value of the person and the
Mm-hmm.
memories that are associated with the things, and just the family history um, is important. And then um, beyond that, I would say taking pictures of things and um, you know, together writing stories about, you know,
Absolutely.
this is a picture of, I mean, the clock's pretty small, so that wasn't the best example, but say it's like a huge grandfather clock that nobody has room for, nobody wants, taking a picture of it and this is the clock that was in the family for this many years, and this is why it's important. Just knowing that when it is something that has an important story attached to it, that the story is going to live on, even though the item isn't in the family any longer. Then maybe if there is, say, a huge like China service or tea service, something like that, maybe keep one cup, or maybe everyone in the family can have like one cup. And so that then everyone has a little piece of that, but no one has to have the whole 60-piece set.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, there's just a couple suggestions.
Thank you. So, so this is all part of building good relationships, maintaining good relationships as our parents age and our spouses and us. I mean, like, in between spouses, do you see, like, as spouses age together, that these kind of conversations just shows love for each other and respect. That
definitely. And with spouses and partners, a lot of times, I think with that, at least from my own experience, assumptions is one of the biggest ones, because we feel like, okay, we've been married forever. I know this person. I know what they're thinking. I know what you're thinking, and we don't always. So just taking a step back and giving the other person a chance to say, what they think or believe, without getting a step ahead of yourself and just assuming that you know what they're going to say or think is can be really valuable.
That is a great tip. Yeah. Yes, my husband and I have been married almost 34 years, but I still have no idea, no idea what he's thinking. So, most of the time probably, or I think I know, and it's not that at all. So that's
yes.
That's a topic for another discussion.
We do that. Like, we'll finish sentences for the other person, which we think, oh, well, that means we're so close. I know what they're thinking, which can be okay if you actually do. But if you're cutting them off and not giving them an opportunity to express themselves, then it kind of backfires. So I love talking with people about what's getting in the way of effective communication, and about how to communicate more effectively to really strengthen bonds and to help them feel more connected to one another.
That's fantastic. Jenn, thank you so much for spending time with us today to share these tips. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Debbie. It was great talking with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, and everyone who's watching, please visit Jenn's page on our fair, because there's a whole nother page to learn much more and how to get in touch with Jenn and to learn from her wisdom and for coaching. So have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.